Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's GIBS Flash Forum. I'm Dr. Jonathan Marks. I'm a faculty member at GIBS in the field of innovation and entrepreneurship. Today, we're going to be focusing on collaboration and remote work in the gig economy, and of course, with some particular focus on COVID-19 and how this is occurring with the current pandemic. Before I introduce my guest, just for those of you that haven't participated in our Flash Forums before, please feel free to share any questions you have with us on the Q&A function on the Zoom platform. I'll monitor that, and as time allows through the time we have with our guest, we'll have a chance to address some of those questions. I was intrigued by the gig economy, and in particular in this current time. The gig economy, as we know, is really an environment in which people are working in an informal way and often freelance-related work or short-term contracts. This is a huge industry. There isn't really a clear sense of the size of it, but MasterCard, who has done work in this space, reckons that about $200 billion worth of value was added in 2018, and this is expected to grow to almost $450 billion by 2023. During this COVID time, many freelance workers and people in the gig economy have been affected, and one of the challenges, of course, with trade and shopping and retail being shut down is that people who are self-employed have often not had a chance to continue with their employment. But one part of the gig economy that seems to be backing this trend is online work, and particularly through platforms such as Fiverr and WhatsApp. Fiverr and Upwork that provide a platform for people who already work remotely and digitally to continue to work and to continue to trade. I had a recent experience with a research project related to COVID-19 in the last few weeks, where we used Fiverr as our platform. At one point, we had about 50 people working with us as essentially research assistants around the world, 12 different countries. It was an amazing experience and an incredible platform to commission work. In many ways, much faster, far cheaper, and much closer to spec than we would have found using our own immediate network in South Africa. And so with this in mind, I reached out to Fiverr to see if somebody would come and have a chat with me about this experience. I'd like to introduce our guest, Aya Mironi, who joins us from Tel Aviv. Aya is the head of Fiverr Pro and one of their add-on companies called &Co. Fiverr was founded in 2010 in Israel. It is now listed on the New York Stock Exchange. The value of the company is just shy of $1 billion US. In fact, their stock has gone up almost 12% through the last few weeks. And so it's been a great opportunity to learn a bit more about this company through my own experience. So Aya, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe just to start, how is COVID-19 affecting you as a company? Just through your work, I know you work both in Israel and in the US from San Francisco, and I'm sure elsewhere in the world. What's happening for you as a company?
So first of all, as I mentioned, thank you for having me. I hope everyone is well and safe wherever you are. Us as a company, actually, because most of our work is online and our product is 100% digital. So we're all continuing to work from home. We're doing a lot of online communications through different platforms, but we're all continuing pretty much as per usual. We see a lot of work coming in, so we're all working extremely hard during these difficult times. And yeah, it's really interesting to see how this pandemic is affecting Fiverr actually. And we're doing everything that we can in order to support our community. Fiverr's mission is to change how the world works together. And we're the largest marketplace for freelancers and small businesses. And so we feel a lot of responsibility to really support our community during these difficult times and make sure they have all the resources and the help they can get to get through it.
Yeah. And what are you seeing on your platform with respect to trade with your sellers and buyers? Is there an increase? Are you seeing particular kinds of work emerge during this time?
So that's a great question. As you probably have imagined, we've seen skilled professional freelancers from all over the world joining the platform, and the pace is just like growing and growing. They're creating new gigs in record numbers throughout the past few weeks, and we definitely see a significant uptick. It's pretty clear that people are turning to Fiverr to explore new income sources, especially as global unemployment increases, just like you mentioned earlier. Our platform also provides them a very safe place to work because all the work is done online and digitally, and you don't actually have to go out of your home in order to perform the work. Then it's very much safe and in line with everything that's been happening in the world right now. In terms of the buying trends, this is obviously based on preliminary data because we've only been in this for a few weeks right now. But we see some particular strength in certain categories, and it's very interesting. For example, books and ebooks, that's soaring. A lot of video and animation services, music and audio services, and mainly online lessons. I think online lessons is a very interesting one that's been really peaking in the last couple of weeks. And I think that all these trends kind of reflect the changes in how businesses and both consumers adapt to the new situation and the new reality that we live in right now. Yeah, there's also an interesting trend that they've noticed is that a lot of our activity right now is on desktop versus mobile. So mobile has dropped down a little bit, but that's naturally because people are just at home and don't need to use their mobile phones as much.
Yeah. And so you were probably seeing an increase anyway in freelance work for your platform before the COVID-19 pandemic, but now you're seeing obviously a marked increase. Is your expectation that that's going to continue when lockdown starts to slow down in various countries?
I think that it will, for sure, because I think that many people are realizing the strength that platforms such as Fiverr has right now. And I think that, on both sides, people are realizing that they can actually work on really interesting projects worldwide through the platform and offer their services and make a great living. And also on the other side, so on the demand side. So we know that a lot of businesses are really adapting to this new digital era and shifting their strategies more into digital. And I think that now the fact that they're kind of forced to do that will make them realize that some services can be consumed much easier this way. And so we definitely think that we're very well positioned to come out of this crisis at an even better stage.
Yeah, and how was Fiverr seeing the gig economy before this pandemic? What was your sort of view of the trajectory with respect to the gig economy?
It's an interesting question. We're obviously in this business because we see a very bright future for it. We know that right now, just like you mentioned, it is somewhat hard to measure exactly the value of it. But we know that a lot of the work is still very much offline. And Fiverr is well positioned to move a lot of the freelance work and the small business digital services online. I think that we're at the very beginning of it. We still have a lot of work to do. And so we see a very bright future ahead of us. We know that it's only in like the single digits, the amount of freelance work that is currently happening online. So there's a lot more market share there to grab.
Now, I've always viewed the Fiverr platform as being one where small businesses and freelancers often connect. So I start a small business, I want to get a logo created. The place to come is to Fiverr. People bid on my work, and I choose somebody who I think is going to do a great job. That obviously still continues as an important part of your platform. But do you see growth into bigger business procuring services through Fiverr, and not just a startup who's maybe looking for a lower cost provider?
So I definitely think that bigger and bigger businesses are going to adopt the platform. We actually already see a lot of increased adoption for bigger corporations. Just like you mentioned, our bread and butter is small businesses, but we know that large corporations, and recently even we checked and it's about 70 of the top 100 global brands have actually used Fiverr before or are using it right now. So we definitely see increased demand also from bigger companies.
Mm.
And as I mentioned earlier, I think that this pandemic is forcing a lot of businesses to start thinking more digitally and planning their strategies accordingly. So I think that this shift is only going to increase in the future. And also a lot of companies who were used to in-person interactions with their clients will now realize that there's also another option, and will help them rethink their strategies and how to adapt more digital tools.
Mm. Yeah, I think I can concur with that. Certainly some of the businesses I've spoken to have had to let staff go, have said as things start to return to some semblance of normality, they probably wouldn't procure those services in the same way by employing somebody. They might look to buy that service on an open market. And so I guess a platform like yours becomes a useful place for them to find those services. Tell me a little bit about the other products that that Fiverr has, because it's not just the platform. There's quite a few other things that you do to support freelancers.
That's true. So Fiverr is kind of like a family of brands and products. Many of them are sub-brands of Fiverr. So for example, we have Fiverr Pro, which is our pool of hand-vetted professional freelancers. We've seen a huge increase in applications since the beginning of the pandemic. And also an increase in demand, because just like you mentioned, bigger and bigger corporations need to get work done, and they want the vetted professional freelancers to perform these jobs. On our side, we've actually hired additional staff to expedite the vetting process, so we can just answer more and more applications and get people through the door and help more professional freelancers make a living on Fiverr. Another one, which is a great example, is Fiverr Learn. So we have an e-learning platform, actually through our resource center that we created especially for COVID-19. We're offering a few of the courses completely free. It comes from the understanding that we want to allow people from all over the world, and especially freelancers, to adopt new skills and be able to offer more and more services. We also have, we recently launched a logo maker, the Fiverr Logo Maker. So it's automated logos where people can, using AI, can create their own logos. So it's not just a one-on-one relationship where you actually have to hire a freelancer, but you get a catalog and through some specifications, and artificial intelligence, you get a custom designed logo for yourself. This is another great source for freelance designers to get passive income. So especially during times like this, where designers need more and more sources of income, it's a great opportunity. And also for businesses who are looking to set up and create their brand identity, as you mentioned, have access to great logos. And finally, we have Endco, which is a company that Fiverr acquired just over 2 years ago. Endco is a software company for freelancers to help freelancers manage their business online. Starting from sending proposals to contracts to invoicing their services and time tracking their work. And it's used by many freelancers who don't necessarily offer their services on Fiverr. As I mentioned, our mission is to help freelancers all over the world, not just those who use Fiverr. So Endco is a big part of that product.
Yeah, thanks. I was really intrigued when I read about your logo maker and the use of AI to develop a logo. You've had obviously first sight as a company at hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of logos being prepared for people as they're sharing those designs with their between buyers and sellers through your platform. And so you've got this incredible repository of data that you're able to look to help you build some kind of solution. Do you think that's a sort of next step for you as a company, that you start to look more and more towards AI to fulfill some of the services, or at least support them, that are being offered by sellers?
So I'm glad you mentioned it, because I think that it's 100% support. So we want to see how AI can help our freelancers do a better job, and how it can help small businesses get the services that they need. So in the case of the logo maker, that's exactly what's happening. We have designs from a variety of designers from all over the world, and AI really helps make these adjustments to the specific needs of the customer. So we see that the two combined can offer the best solution, both for the buyer and also for the freelancer.
Yeah, and I think in many ways that's of course the perfect metaphor for remote work, is that technology along with us allows us to deliver so much value without necessarily being face to face. And that Fiverr is doing exactly that. They're combining AI with the power that many designers bring to their work and using that to deliver a better service.
Exactly.
Yeah. There was a question on the Q&A about what are the most common services procured on your platform?
So in general, we have a variety. We have over 300 different services that we offer. So it's really anything from graphic design, which can be, it can be logo design, it can be website design, it can be app design, it can be social media design through programming and text. So if you're building a new website, or if you want to build a mobile app, or even if you want to do a cybersecurity audit for your business, and all the way through, as I mentioned earlier, music and audio. So voiceover is a very popular product on Fiverr. And also in video and animation, so video editing, we see it like really booming in the last couple of weeks. A lot of people, a lot of startups really use whiteboard and animated explainers in order to add them to their pitch decks or websites to really explain what their product does. Photoshop editing is a big one. The list is very, very long.
And talk a little bit about Fiverr's business model. You obviously do some sort of introduction between buyer and seller and take a fee for that. Is that correct?
Yes, it's exactly like that. So it's an open marketplace. So anybody can offer their services, and anybody can come sign up, open an account, and purchase services. And we take a cut from the transaction. And it's all fulfilled on the website. So all the communication between the buyer and the seller is done via Fiverr. The payment is obviously done via Fiverr. The delivery is done via Fiverr. So due to that, everything is very secure. And because everything is done through the platform, then that's the cut.
And tell me a little bit about the vetting process. You spoke about the vetting for Fiverr Pro, which is really a sort of hand-selected group of sellers. What about just registering on Fiverr as a seller? Is there any vetting that goes on with that?
No. So anybody is welcome to create a gig and offer their services according to the skills they have, according to what they think that they do best. There is no vetting process. It's an open platform. Obviously we have our terms of use, so not everything can be offered, and it has to be a service in one of the categories that we have, which I mentioned is over 300. But yeah, there is no vetting process. We save the vetting process for Fiverr Pro, as I mentioned, where the process is very notorious, and we actually have only about 1 or 2% of applications go through. So it's a very high bar that we set.
And what advice would you give to somebody out there is maybe thinking of augmenting their income with some freelance work, or maybe they've lost their job in the last few weeks and are trying to think of a way to be part of the economy again and offering their service? How do you set yourself up on Fiverr? What are some of the tips and tricks to get going with remote work through Fiverr?
So as I mentioned, anybody can sign up. Go create an account and work on your gig. I will advise to ensure that you're really providing professional services to your clients. So I know that you actually have the ability to provide the service at the price point that you require. But it's also about a lot about communication. So make sure to continuously communicate with the buyer to make sure you understand exactly what they want and communicate exactly what you're going to deliver. I would advise to be very specific with the service you're providing, so the match is better. If you think about Fiverr, it's kind of set up like an e-commerce site. So the more specific and the more descriptive you are in your gig description, the more likely someone is to come across it and purchase it.
Yeah.
And eventually just good customer service. At the end of the day, it is small businesses who are looking to buy a service for their business. So be responsive, ask questions, make your client feel like they have a true partner, communicate well, stick to your deadlines. If you see that you have to be late, communicate that in advance. So.
Yeah, so I think in many ways it's like business in the real world. Obviously, you just got the chance, as I had with this project, to work with people from around the world who I'd never have found were it not for your platform. And if I think about my lived experience, a few of those sellers were amazing at communicating, were really great at delivering service. They met the brief. It was just such a pleasure working with them. In many ways, much easier than somebody working down the road from me in South Africa. A few questions that have come. The one is around CRM data. What do you have that sort of almost shows the satisfaction between between buyer and seller on your platform? That can assure maybe the next buyer.
So we have a review system so basically just like almost any other marketplace, where both the buyer and the seller at the end of the job get to review each other. And these reviews are public. So when you go as a buyer, just select the freelancer, and not only you can see the reviews that they received, but you can also see past projects that they delivered. So you can see the review alongside the actual delivery, and same thing for the buyer. So sellers also get to review buyers. So when the seller gets an order from a buyer, you can also see the reviews of that buyer. Yeah.
And how do you adjudicate if there isn't value being transferred through that relationship, and let's say a buyer is dissatisfied with the service with the seller?
So we have a resolution center. We obviously first advise the buyer and the seller to try and figure it out between themselves, just like in real life. When you hire someone to do a work for you, you don't always go to a third party to help you solve whatever problems you might have. So we always encourage the two of them to solve any issues that they might have between them. But we also have a big support team that can help in such situations.
Okay, all right. There was a question from somebody on the Q&A about privacy and about data privacy. How do you manage that between, I assume, like, every online company, you've got restrictions and GDPR, etc. How do you manage that, given that you're working across so many geographic boundaries?
Well, we manage it just like any other company. We are GDPR compliant. We make sure that all the communication is strictly between the buyer and the seller. We have all the privacy and security measures in place. As you mentioned, we're a big platform. We have millions of transactions. And we have millions of people who rely on the platform. So everything is safe, secured, and compliant with all the restrictions, whether it's the European Unions or anywhere else in the world.
In many ways, your Fiverr is an early warning of changes in the labor market. That as people begin to find that their work becomes more tenuous, they might look towards a platform like Fiverr to look for more work, and that we might see, I'm guessing, a sort of uptick in the number of sellers registering in a particular country or region in advance of some of the actual labor market stats, which are often, retrospective. Are you seeing any particular countries or regions registering more sellers now during this COVID crisis? Is that data that you capture or look at?
We look at it, but to be honest, because it's a truly global pandemic, I think that we saw everything going up. Yeah, just from everywhere. I don't think there's anybody who hasn't been hurt by this. And so we see the surge really like globally across the entire world, from everywhere, both from the European countries who have been hit hardest earlier on, but also very much North America and then the rest of the world.
And then there are a few questions around the pricing and sort of a rate card. You don't have any sort of standardized rating for cost for services. It's an open marketplace where people buy and sell at the going market price. Is that right?
Yes, it is an open marketplace. Our price range varies between $5 and $10,000 per service on Fiverr Pro. So
Okay.
it's a very, very, very wide range.
Yeah.
And we leave it up to the freelancer to price their services. They know what their work is worth. They know how to best price their services. So the freelancers define the pricing. We also have an option for a custom order. So the gig doesn't actually have to be the final work doesn't actually have to be what's defined in the gig itself. We very much encourage buyers and sellers to speak to each other. And if you need something that's a little bit customized, then both the requirements and obviously the price can be customized accordingly.
And of
So
course,
it's very flexible.
That's the origin of the word Fiverr. It was, what would you be prepared to do for $5? Is
Yes,
that right?
that's how it started 10 years
Okay.
ago.
And was that there was a fixed price that you could offer a gig for $5 and people came and took advantage of that or not? Is that correct?
Yes, that was the very beginning, but since then we have come a long way. As I mentioned, right now you can price your services up to $10,000 if you're on Fiverr Pro.
Yeah.
So those days are long gone.
Yeah, there's not much we can get for $5 today anyway. And then I'm interested in the extent to which you see your company growing more into the sort of digital online collaboration. So if I think of my experience, the one thing I couldn't do was bring a group of sellers together into a project. Now, it might be that I didn't use the platform properly, but it would have been great to brief 20 people on a piece of work rather than 20 people individually. Is that something that we can maybe look forward to on Fiverr?
That is something that to some extent already exists.
Okay.
We have a product that we launched, if I'm not mistaken, about 6 months ago, something around that, which is called Fiverr Studios. So Fiverr Studios is actually another thing that's really, it's a great opportunity during this pandemic. It allows a group of freelancers to kind of create a virtual agency or a studio and work together, even though they live in complete different places and probably have never met each other in person. So if you think about a research like you had that needed multiple freelancers, or if you think about a more simple example, if you want to build a website, you need someone to write the content, you need someone to do the design, you need someone to develop it, and maybe you need someone to do an SEO audit at the end of all this. So for very different services, and now they can all create a virtual studio and work together as a studio to provide that more complex project. Every studio has a studio lead, who's the person who gets the brief from you. And then they kind of cooperate all the work between the different freelancers. So very much a great opportunity for collaboration. And especially right now where people need and want to collaborate with different people from all over the world. We see it doing really well.
Yeah, thanks. It's a great product. I'm sorry I didn't see that at the start of my project, but I think especially for complex projects where there's, as you say, multiple services being delivered. This has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing. I hope that your platform just continues to go from strength to strength. I think it's just such a great service that you're offering, and I know that there'll be many freelancers in South Africa who would be fascinated to learn more. So thank you again. I so appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And yeah, keep well and keep safe in Israel. For those of you listening, we look forward to seeing you again on Monday for the next Flash Forum. And so thank you very much for joining this one on the gig economy. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and all the best to all of you. Thank you so much.